Hey guys, Sneaky Snake here, Brothers in Arms, World of Warships, and today's video we're going to take a look at a game that I had in the New Mexico, the Tier 6 American Battleship. I'm playing by myself on the EU server, and it's some standard battle here on the map Neighbors. So a few days ago I featured a New York replay. As you all know, I am grinding up the American battleships on my EU account, so I figured that I would get some gameplay out for each ship along the way. And here at Tier 6, the New Mexico is a pretty okay battleship. It's certainly not OP, it's certainly not one of the best, but it's certainly not bad. It's a ship that is still pretty okay, it's still pretty good, even in the current meta. And I figured that this replay would be a more appropriate one to show you. This is Tier 8 matchmaking, and unfortunately playing Tiers 5 and 6, you do get up-tiered quite a bit. And obviously since the carrier rework, there are a lot more carriers around as well. So, while maybe not getting into 2 carrier games is the standard, I just figured that this one would be really good to show you because even in matchmaking such as this, you could still have really good results in the New Mexico and other American battleships that fit that standard type mold. So what do I mean by that? Well, standard type battleship design, all or nothing armor scheme, very slow. And those are pretty much the 2 defining features of the ships. They're also pretty compact, they're pretty small as well, compared to other type of battleship designs that you see in game. And the New Mexico, compared to the New York, it does upgrade in the guns pretty significantly. You get 12 of these bad boys instead of 10, so you do have some pretty frightening firepower. You're only matched at Tier 6, currently in game by the Fuso. And then I forget, I think it's the Ismail, that Soviet battleship. It also gets 12 guns at Tier 6 as well. So it's not necessarily unique anymore, but having 12 14-inch guns does give you a lot of firepower, and this ship definitely benefits the closer that it gets to the target because the Sigma is actually very poor. It's 1.6, so this is a ship that does not suit players that like to sit in the back. You really do need to try to get up into the fight with this ship and close the distance, and that's a facet of the Wyoming, the New York, and the New Mexico is really no different, and then to an extent the Colorado is kind of the same thing at Tier 7. These standard type battleships really enjoy that short-ish to medium range combat where you're nice and close to the enemy team and you're going to be able to take advantage of your guns. Now, other things about the New Mexico, the AA, even with the upgraded hull, is okay, but when you're in a game with Tier 8 carriers, it's really not going to do that much. The ship has really excellent maneuverability, however, because it is so small and compact, has really good rudder shift, has a really good turning circle for a battleship. And then another thing is with this boat, you can get the spotting aircraft to be able to shoot over 22 kilometers, which is really nice. It's a very good thing to have because progressively this game has become more and more about how far away can you shoot at the target. I remember the good old days with the American battleships where they didn't have much range and it was kind of a struggle, but now you can definitely utilize the scouting aircraft to good effect. Now, you can see, as we now get into the gameplay here, I decided to shoot at the Lightning, who went into his smokescreen, 2 penetrations, 1 overpen, about 4,000 damage. Unfortunately, the days are well gone where BBs could wreck destroyers that were angled like that, but still a very solid hit of 4,000 damage into that guy. Now, looking at the minimap, if you're wondering why I'm positioning the way that I am, I'm trying to get up further east so I can get around those islands. And the reason why is because, well, for one thing, you're able to utilize the island cover to move in and around and basically close the distance. It's a lot easier to close the distance when you have island cover that can mask your approach. And the New Mexico has pretty okay stealth at 12.4 kilometers with the full stealth build, which means you have the captain skill and you have the required paint on your ship. But this ship can utilize island cover pretty nicely because it is so maneuverable. It is able to go in and around islands relatively with ease, and it makes doing so very advantageous because you don't have the speed to be able to chase down or run down enemy ships, so you need to think of crafty ways to maneuver and get to positions where maybe the enemy team is not expecting. Another thing about the American battleships that I've found that works really well, and you'll see some of it in this game, is that you don't want to be the one that's getting focused. Obviously, being a slow ship, it makes you a very easy target to hit, but you can see there's a Gaeta, there's a Jervis, there's a Fiji, there's a Bayern, there's an Atlanta all out in front of me. So basically, there's a whole bunch of other ships that the enemy team could shoot at besides me. And when you're playing in higher tier games especially, this is something important. You do not want to be the guy out at the front line. Now you might think, well, doesn't that run contrary to getting in close? Well, not necessarily. You can see that I'm only about 10 kilometers away from the Baltimore and from that Dunkirk, but there are friendly ships that are out in front of me. So you still need to close the distance, but maybe do so with other ships out in front of you. Now, I do decide to slow down here. This Dunkirk, I believe, was trying to get behind the island, but he strayed way too far forward, and at about 10 kilometers, even with poor dispersion, the shells are looking pretty darn good, and I managed to get 22,000 damage with the double Citadel on that Tier 6 premium French battleship as I pick up my first frag of the game. And kind of like with the New York, 9 to 13, 14 kilometers really is the preferred engagement distance with this ship. At least during normal combat circumstances, because again, like the New York, getting into point-blank range combat can be tricky because the ship does have a citadel that's somewhat easy to reach, but also, like the New York, the bow and the stern are extremely weak. They have very, very low thickness or little thickness to them. So ships that are able to overmatch 15-inch, 16-inch guns, even 14-inch guns that can aim basically right at the nose and go right on through you, and there's not really much you can do about it. So that's something you have to keep in mind when you decide to get in really close range combat. Now at this point, I am showing broadside to this New Mexico, but clearly his focus is elsewhere, so for me, it's not really that big of a deal. If he were to turn his guns in my direction, obviously I would turn in and angle as best that I can. But right now, he's really the only battleship that is anywhere remotely close to this battle space. There is the Ismail over in E9, but I'm not worried about him at the moment. So I'm just focused on trying to farm as much damage as I can on this enemy New Mexico. And you can see there are some shells coming in at me from the Baltimore, but that's chip damage. And now I'm going to use one of my first heals of the game. And you can see that my heal is able to get a lot more back because all of the American battleships now have the improved heal that I believe was first on the Colorado, but now is a thing for all of the American BBs. Unfortunately, the attempt to get the killing blow on the New Mexico fails as I put him down below 1,000 HP. You can see there that even at only about 10 kilometers and with really good aim, only 5 of the shells landed on target, and that is a more accurate representation of how many shells you could expect to hit. I know that I did hit with well over half the salvo on the Dunkirk, but that kind of salvo right there that you just saw is much more likely to happen based off the sigma of the ship. The Abruzzi decides to turn broadside to me, so I do get a salvo going downrange right before he gets undetected. And sometimes the inaccuracy of this ship does hook you up, as only one shell hits him, but it does manage to get the Citadel. And with 10,500 damage, that's a pretty respectable total to have on a Citadel. So I'm up to almost 70,000 points of damage, which is a pretty okay damage number to have in this ship. It's probably on the very low end of the Unicum if we were talking about average damage. So pretty okay amount. And the enemy team is steadily getting pushed back into their spawn. You can see that they've lost 5 ships, and the remaining 7 of them are all pushed back into the bottom right quadrant of the map. I decided to throw some shells downrange at the Baltimore, but I didn't really think that the Lexington was going to get that big of a salvo on him with the rocket planes. However, he does. So now the enemy team has lost 6 ships, we've only lost 4, and things are still looking pretty darn good. And you can see that once again I am not the first ship forward, and I'm just trying to stay in that second line, still close enough to utilize my guns, but not too close where I'm getting focused heavily. And it's very, very, very important that you guys understand that if you're playing the American battleships, you really do not want to be the focus of fire, because you are not able to disengage at your own will, and that is one of the most important things to learn with this ship. Now you can see right there, that was a bit more like the kind of dispersion that you're going to see, some very, very poor dispersion, both horizontally and laterally on that Abruzzi that was going broadside. But you can see that what I'm thinking right now is I'm getting a little too far forward. Both the Ismail and the Abruzzi are shooting at me, and maybe that Lazo will join in as well. So what I need to do right now is turn a little bit to the right, and I can see that the Ismail shot his salvo downrange, so I know that I'm safe to make this turn and that I still have a little bit more time. But again, I want to put myself at an angle and at a position where I am not going to be the focus of the enemy team. Now I do have to turn to the right to try and dodge the torpedo planes, Unfortunately, one of them does hit me on the stern, so I have to use my damage control because I was also on fire as well, and I still have a minute left on my heal, so I really didn't want to sit there and flood and burn out at that point. So now I get my next scouting spot plane up, which is great, but I'm in a position right now where things are still okay. Still have plenty of hit points to work with, and I'm going to get some shots downrange at this Ishmael. 14 kilometers, right at the, I guess, the edge of what I would consider the ideal engagement ranges for the New Mexico. And unfortunately, only 2 out of 12 shells landed on target. But now at this point, with the Atlanta firmly pushed up and with the Fiji pushing up as well, I'm now actually, once I get this last salvo off on the Furious, I'm going to start moving to the southwest and try to utilize more of that island cover. And again, I know I've already said it, but you can see utilizing island cover is so important because it allows you, at least temporarily, to dictate who is able to shoot at you. And it's very, very important that you study the maps and learn positions that are going to be better off for you to go to. Now you can see that the Atlanta and Fiji are moved up, so once again, I'm going to go around this headland here, and I'm going to start getting some shots on those ships, because again, they're still pushed back into their base, and we have almost a 2-to-1 lead in ships, so things really are looking really good right now. And 2 of the enemy ships left are the aircraft carriers, so there's only 2 surface ships left to deal with. Now Lazo is getting attacked on the other side of the map by the Lexington's rocket planes, so he is dealing with stuff right now. So now I'm going to engage this Ishmael. The salvo went downrange at the enemy Furious. Now I'm angling to the Ishmael, and when you are able to angle with this ship, it does have quite a bit of belt armor. It is rather thick, so you are able to bounce some shells that come your way. Now, at this point, what I'm thinking to myself is, well, the Ishmael is going to have to come get a little bit closer to me to try and deal with me. He's also getting spammed to death by the enemy, or by the friendly Atlanta. So he's in a bit of a pickle. And what I'm going to do here, since that Furious is just sitting in open water, is I'm going to focus him, but I'm going to be angled to this Ishmael so that if he does decide to try and engage me, I'm still in a comfortable position, and I'm just going to be able to farm damage off of this Tier 6 British aircraft carrier. And if he does turn broadside, then maybe I'll be able to punish him. So I'm just going to sit here. I'm undetected. I'm too far out of the way for the Graf Zeppelin to spot me. And in this position, I do have line of sight blocked from the Furious and the Ishmael. The only reason why I am detected right now is because of those torpedo planes from the Graf Zeppelin. But you can see the planes go away for a split second, and then I go undetected. So that's A-okay. But this position right now is perfectly fine. I don't really have to worry about anything, and hopefully this Ishmael will then turn broadside and I should be able to get the frag, because at these kinds of ranges, this is where the New Mexico definitely, its accuracy is more than made up for by the number of guns or the number of shells going down range. And when you get dispersion like that, yeah, you're not going to survive. I get the Citadel on that Tier 6 Soviet battleship. I pick up my second frag of the game, and I'm up to 113,000 points of damage. You can see that the Graf Zeppelin is continuing to go in reverse, trying to get away from the Jervis. So all I got to do is move forward a little bit, and I should be able to get some salvos downrange at that guy. The Furious is on 9,200 hit points, and I decide, you know what, let's go for it. But I guess I kind of didn't really notice that the carrier dropped his torpedoes on him, and that guy is going to eat 3 of them from the Lexington and kick the bucket. So now the only target left in the game is the enemy Graf Zeppelin, and hopefully I'll be able to move forward and quickly get into a position to try and farm some damage off of him before the game ends. But yeah, you're not going to do anything quickly in the ship. Don't let my my choice of words distract you. You're not going to do anything quickly in the ship at all. There's nothing you're going to do quickly in the New Mexico. So I decided to get my forward turret shooting, as the Graf Zeppelin does take some damage. He goes down below 10k. The salvo actually looked pretty decent coming out of the barrels. I get the Citadel, and that ends the game. Alrighty guys, taking a look at the post-battle results, 343,000 credits received and over 10,000 total experience earned. This was my first win of the day. I picked up 118,000 damage off of 54 shell hits. I sank 1/4 of the enemy team. I shot down 4 airplanes, and I secured 5 citadels. Taking a look at the team score, 1,828 base XP. That's a solid game, especially being up-tiered with double carriers. That is very, very good. And then, of course, it helps that our carriers were also very competent as well, with them securing 4 frags and 26 planes shot down between the two of them. So, obviously, this game was kind of dependent upon our carriers doing well, because let's be honest, the carriers, the way they are in the game, they control even more than they used to. But I was able to put myself in good positions. I never truly got focused down by anything in particular. I utilized island cover to maneuver around and put myself in pretty decent spots to farm the enemy team. And like I said at the very beginning, while certainly not the highest damaging game, this one is a pretty good example of the kind of playstyle that you should be using in the New Mexico. Excuse me. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. And with that being said, this is Sneck for BIA World of Warships signing off. Guys and gals, as always, have a great day.